Hello beautiful people, my name is Vendi and this is the first ever episode of Bookie Cookin. So I love to bake. I love to make delicious little treats that I can have after I've eaten my lunch or my dinner, and sometimes I even have them for breakfast because that's part of what being an adult is, right? And the other day I was thinking, what better way to combine my love for books and my love for baking than by baking/cooking some delicious foods that are mentioned in books. Because I don't know about you, but I really love when books go into detail about the richness of flavors and images of, I'm salivating just thinking about it. I love descriptions of food in books. So I thought I would bring some of my favorite bookish desserts and meals even, maybe, into life, into my real life, so that I can eat them and just enjoy that part of the atmosphere of reading as well. I'm not sure if anyone's done this before. I know that there's a channel called Nerdy Nummies here on YouTube where this girl just creates like video game and TV show food, and that's really cool. So that sort of inspired this. In this episode of Bookie Cooking, we are going to be making lemon tarts, or rather lemon squares, that are featured in Heartless by Marissa Meyer and also in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. These books are some of my absolute favorite tales, and lemon squares are some of my absolute favorite foods. So without further ado, let me show you how to make Catherine's lemon squares. Catherine's lemon squares are super easy to make. There's only 5 ingredients that you'll need to make them total. To make Catherine's lemon squares, you will be combining 3 of these ingredients to make a sort of cookie base, and then the other ingredients to make the lemon filling. To make the cookie base, you will need 1 cup of softened butter. I've had mine sitting out on my counter for a little bit to get it to be room temperature. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and ½ a cup of granulated sugar. To make the lemon filling, you will take 1½ cups of granulated sugar, 4 Jabberwock eggs. If you don't have a Jabberwock nearby, just a regular chicken egg will do. And the final and most important ingredient is the juice of 3 lemons. I like to use regular lemons because they tend to be a little more tart, but if you prefer sweeter lemon squares, I suggest using Meyer lemons. Those tend to be a little juicier, so about 2 of them will do the job of 3 regular lemons. If you can't find regular lemons, but you still want to make a more tart lemon square, just take out about 1/4 cup of sugar from the filling mixture. Alright, now let's put it all together and make some lemon squares. The first thing you need to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. In a medium-sized bowl, mix together your softened butter, your 2 cups of flour, and your ½ a cup of sugar. Ooh, sticky. Yeah, leaving it out on the counter will get it really soft. That's all you really need to do with it. Oh, why did I do that? That's 1 and 2. Ooh, flour going everywhere. And a ½ cup of granulated sugar, just about. That one I don't mind licking off my fingers nearly as much. And then you just mix them up. The softened butter will maybe give you a little bit of grief if you have no upper body strength, the way that I don't. Unlike Catherine in Heartless, I am not a baker, so I don't have the upper body strength or the patience required to properly mix things with a spoon. So you know what? This is gonna be a little gross, but I think I'm gonna mix it with my hands. Oh yes. That's actually working wonderfully. So pro tip, to be a real pro in the kitchen, you gotta get your hands a little dirty, the way Catherine does in Heartless. If you didn't know, Heartless is the origin story for the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. She is one of my favorite characters. I just really like her dynamic with Alice, and Heartless sort of lets you know how she came to be the wicked lady we like to call the Queen of Hearts. Villain origin stories are always really fascinating for me to read because I really like villains that have a reason for doing the things that they're doing. They're always a little bit sad, right? Because a villain hasn't really come to the conclusion of their story, Everyone's the hero of their own story, and the story really concludes when the hero has a happy ending, and since the villain is continuing being villainous, there's just this implication that they haven't found their happy ending yet, which is quite sad. So be prepared to be a little bummed for Catherine if you read the story. And this is about as mixed as you want it. Let me show you what that looks like. The effect that you want is this sort of breadcrumby looking thing where the butter is completely mixed into the other two ingredients. And what you're gonna do with this mixture is pop it into a 9 by 13 ungreased glass baking pan. And then you're just gonna use your hands and smooth it all in until it creates one even surface throughout. If you've ever played with kinetic sand, that should be sort of the effect you get here, where alone it's very grainy, but the moment you put some pressure onto it, it sort of forms and holds its shape, and it should create a tiny little lip up at the edge of the baking pan. Also, I'm sorry to all of my European or just general metric using followers. I will include all of the conversions in the description box below if that's a thing that you would like. I mean, I'm gonna do it anyway, but if you're trying to make the recipe, ignore what I'm saying and just go to the description box and use that instead. By this point, your oven should be preheated, and you can just slide this in and let it bake for a little bit. We're gonna let that sit in there for about 15 to 20 minutes or until it's just about golden brown. And while we wait for that to finish up, we are going to make our lemon filling. Since the ingredients used to make the filling are just about the same as the ones that are used to make the crust, I use the same bowl. You can get a different one if you're anal about that, but I mix my filling ingredients in the same exact thing just to make cleanup easier, and also because I'm lazy. To make the filling, the first thing you want to do is put your 1.5 cups of sugar and 1/4 cup flour into the bowl. I like a little less sugar in my lemon bars, so I just sort of eyeball it. A little less is a lot more in my opinion. 1/4 cup. You want to whisk these two together so that they're pretty evenly combined. I don't know why, it's just a thing you might want to do. I'm no chemist, but I'm pretty sure that the flour that you put in there is just to thicken the mixture and make it more custardy by the time it's baked. Once you've whisked it so you can't tell where the flour starts and where the sugar begins, add in your 4 eggs. Was it Jabberwock or Mock Turtle? Jabberwock, Mock Turtle, or chicken eggs will do. I'm using chicken because they're cheapest, and Wonderland imports are pretty expensive, what with Trump's new tariffs. You just want to crack these in there. Oh, beautiful. I'm really proud of myself. No shell has gotten in yet. I might have just jinxed myself. I didn't. Yes, all the eggs are cracked successfully. I'm very pleased with this. Once you've got them all in, you just give them a little whisk. I like to break the yolks before I start combining things. Otherwise, I combine the whites of the eggs with stuff first, and then the yolks just sort of sit there and it looks kind of weird. Maybe I'm just bad at baking, but that always happens to me if I don't break the yolks first. You want to be careful with this if you're a klutz like I am, because otherwise you will get egg, sugar, and flour all over yourself, and that's just, there's no way to make that fun. That cleanup is never a good time. Speaking of messy things, Heartless is a pretty messy story for Catherine. As you may have surmised because of the whole Bookie Cookie thing, Catherine is a baker, which isn't exactly the sort of thing that you expect a future queen to be doing, but Catherine never expected to be the future queen. Basically, some very mixed up shenanigans occur in her life that lead to her becoming our famous villain from Alice in Wonderland. And I'm not going to spoil you because we're done mixing anyway. And now we're on to the most important part of this recipe, the lemons. Hey! I'm so pleased that that juggling works out. I don't actually know how to juggle, so that was really good. I'm not sure if it all caught on camera, but I know that I did. I did 2 full passes. Basically what you want to do with your lemons is just have them and juice them. Nothing too fancy. Though I suppose if you want to get fancy, you could zest one of those lemons into, you know what? I'm gonna get fancy. So slice 2 of your lemons in half and keep the last one just for a little bit. Make sure you give your lemon a wash because you're gonna be grating some of the skin into your mixture. I'm a huge fan of zest in my desserts. If you're like me and you don't have a zester, I just recommend using the smallest thing that you have on your cheese grater thing. It works just as fine as any zester or so I say I'm a complete amateur, but it's worked just fine for me. So after you've zested that one lemon, give it a slice just like the other two, and then juice all three and put them in your mixture. I love adding zest to baking because it just adds an element of tartness. I'd like to think I'm a pretty sweet girl, so I don't like very much sugar in my desserts. I really appreciate it when, if it's a fruity dessert, that the tang of the fruit comes out, or if it's a chocolatey dessert, I like a little bit of bitterness to get in there, or some heat from some chilies. Hopefully though, if you like super sweet desserts, I've given you enough modifications that you'll be able to make this taste the way that you like it to taste, instead of the way that I do. Once you've emptied all your lemons of their juice and they are just sad, hollow shells of what they once were, take that juice and pour it straight into your mixture. And once you've got your lemon juice and the rest of your batter, just give it a nice little whisk until the whole of the mixture is well combined. Make sure you don't get any pulp into here. I'm of the belief that pulp is good in orange juice, but it's not something you want in your custard. It'll make it weirdly congealed in certain bites, and that's just never a fun thing to dig your teeth into. You want it nice and smooth for the Hatter's Tea Party, or whichever unbirthday that you're taking this tray of lemon squares to. When the 15 minutes of baking are up, you are going to be adding your filling into your completely, well, not completely, but mostly baked cookie base. If you're lucky, your oven will let you know when they are ready to come out. Make sure to wear your red Catherine approved baking gloves when you're pulling this sucker out of the oven so that you don't burn yourself. And then be sure to keep your oven at 350 degrees because you're going to be putting this right back in just a moment. So the cookie base isn't exactly golden brown, but it is slightly stiffer than it was before. The butter mixture will have puffed up, so what you want to do is flatten it again. I like to use a small fork to just sort of get the air out from the bottom and flatten the base. There will probably be air bubbles, and do not shy about popping those, and make sure that you flatten the lip on the side as well. You want it as flat as you can get it before you put in, don't let any gaps form at the bottom. Anyway, you want it as flat as you can get it before you put in your custardy filling. Once you've flattened it to your satisfaction, give your custard one final whisk to just combine all the ingredients and pour it straight on in there. Make sure to do so carefully so that nothing spills over the top. You want your custard to remain inside the little lips of the cookie base. It's not going to be perfect, and if you don't have enough stuff to make a lip, that's totally fine as well. I just like edge pieces in my own, so I always make a little bit extra. And what you want to do with this after it's filled is carefully put it back into the oven, and I'm not going to film it because I want to use two hands to make sure it's as neat as possible. When the bars are safely inside the oven, you want to keep them in there for about 20 more minutes until, 20 more minutes until they are done. Of course, sometimes waiting 20 minutes simply will not do. Sometimes you just want your lemon bars right away. We are in Wonderland. I wonder. Wow! I swear that's never worked in the real world. It must be a Wonderland thing. Since these are Heartless themed, I thought it best to let you know that if you want to get a fun checkerboard sort of effect, you can make another batch of squares but using limes instead, and you add a little tiny bit of green food coloring to make the look a bit more vibrant, and then you just arrange them on a plate in a checkered board pattern if you're trying to be super festive. I've never done it, but I hear that it's really pretty to look at that way. And that is it for the first ever episode of Bookie Cookin'. I've had a whole lot of fun making these lemon squares, and I hope you guys do too if you decide to make them. And if you do and you want to document the experiments, please let me know and tell me in the comments how that goes, because I'd love to hear or see, if you take pictures, how your lemon squares turn out. I'd especially love to see it if you do the checkerboard thing, because I think that would look really cool, and I've never actually done it. It's just like a thing that I read on the internet that was possible. If you like Bookie Cookin', please let me know so that I can do more of these. If you guys hate them, I will let this idea die slowly, and I will crawl home ashamed and go back to doing what I'm used to doing. But if you do like it, please let me know, because I had a lot of fun, and I would love to bring you guys more baked goods into your life, because I feel like a lot of things can be solved with a surplus of baked deliciousness. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, and if you like me, maybe consider subscribing. Also consider subscribing if you want more recipes every so often. But that is it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Not with a Bookie Cookin', it'll be a different sort of video, but I hope it'll still be fun, and I'll see you then.